here on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Olive Monica Najuma to welcome you and usher you into this new year with our first show of 2025. But is Jerome Paul Sonko, and also in Studio B is Nyonyintana. Good morning, Chirabo, and welcome to 2025.
Happy New Year to our viewers. Happy New Year to you, Najuma Sonko, and the entire crew of Good Morning Uganda. Now, we are starting the year with a very important, extraordinary summit happening. Why am I calling it very important? Because this is going to be discussing issues of agriculture. And a very important thing to discuss concerning agriculture is resilient agro systems. Now, we've always talked about Uganda's backbone being agriculture, but you'll notice that a number of our people in Uganda are in subsistence agriculture. They live for the stomach. They only grow what to eat. They're not growing for selling or for commercial. But very important in this summit, when we talk about CADIP, which is the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which is a continental initiative aimed at eliminating hunger and reducing poverty. Now, why this conference to me is very important, actually. Like, most of African countries are in agriculture, but the challenge is we do not have resilient crops and agri-systems. That's why when you look at the Greater Horn of Africa, you find that people are in agriculture, but when drought comes, when famine comes, Uganda, we have very fertile soils. But do you believe that there are times when we run out of food? There is food insecurity in some parts of this country. So this is very important to ensure that we look at how best can Africa be independent when it comes to food and coming up with resilient, which means having the ability to go through tough or hard times, our food systems. So to me, it speaks volumes, having over 2,000 guests that will be jetting into the country, and some of those that will be participating. I think it's a very good thing, and no wonder we shall be adopting a declaration that will run us for the next 10 years. And this is all going to be at the Speak Resort and Conventional Center in Munyonyo.
Well, thank you, Robert. And yes, to supplement on what Robert has shared with us, the theme for this summit is building resilient agri-food systems in Africa. And the key outcome for the summit is the adoption of a bold 10-year strategy and action plan that is aimed at promoting agriculture across Africa and fighting hunger and ensuring food security for generations to come. Also, Uganda's leadership in agriculture and also sustainability is on the spotlight when it comes to this summit, because Uganda is also the current chair of the African Union's Specialized Technical Committee. So it is a fully loaded one, and because agriculture is the bedrock of our economy, this summit is extremely important to Uganda, but also the rest of Africa. Well, Jerome Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Olive. And good morning to our dear viewer. 2026 is here. We are here once again to drive conversations and lead your morning conversations in the same regard. And I'm pretty much excited that we are into the new year. And well, as you can definitely imagine, it is just 6 days into 2025. A lot is happening within the country from every corner, yes. Entertainment-wise, socially, politically, and this is the same year where Uganda's political landscape is going to be further tested as we are heading into, as we prepare for the polls in 2026. Speaking of CADIP that is coming up this week, well, it also sets another kind of precedent for Uganda, because last year we also started the year with summits of this nature. The other time we had 2 of them, and they ran consecutively, if I'm to say.
For
that was days. NAM, and then the G77 plus China summit. Yes. Now this particular one is also going to be looking into some of the declarations from the previous sittings. For example, one in Malabo that highlighted on something very important, that is ending hunger in Africa by 2025, and also heavily adding investments into the agricultural sector. We as a country, Uganda, have done a little bit of the investment and ensuring that farmers who have been focused on subsistence agriculture can easily tap into commercialization of agriculture, because that way you're increasing investment that is going to enable even small-scale farmers earn off their sweat. But I'm hoping that by the end of this summit in Kampala, the declaration gets more practical in regards to the investment, and the investment should not only be limited to those with money, but also the other Africans or the other small-scale farmers across the African continent.
Well, given that one of the highlights for this 10-year program is ensuring food security for generations to come, where we may not have to struggle or grapple with the issues of hunger, of famine in different parts of Africa, I think that probably we are on to the money. Something great might come out of this. Yeah. Well, let's get into the local news, because that's what we do. We give you highlights of the news that has made rounds over the last 24 hours.
Well, we begin with the refugee issue to be addressed during the CADIP. Now, government is scheduled to table the challenge of managing refugees in Uganda at the upcoming African Union Summit on Agriculture and Farming. The Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agriculture, General David Kasura, said this aimed at ensuring sustainable and resilient agri-food systems for a healthy and prosperous Africa. This comes just a few days to the long-awaited extraordinary summit on comprehensive Africa agriculture development programs due to take place in Kampala. Refugees have been supported in growing vegetables, root crops and fruits at subsistency and commercial purposes. The initiative is complementary to addressing the food shortage in refugee settlements, and that is why a side event for the extraordinary summit on comprehensive Africa agriculture development programs has been set aside. In line with the theme of the summit, sustainable and resilient agri-food systems for a healthy and prosperous Africa, makes the upcoming engagement timely. About 3 months ago, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees visited Uganda at Ramanja Refugee Settlement in Kamwenge District, in company of the Uganda's Minister in charge of Refugee Management, Engineer Hilary Onek. Top among their concern was the issue of food security being hampered by limited resources. State Minister for Higher Education, Dr. John Chrisisto Muyingo, has reaffirmed commitment to educate learners from the underprivileged families in Bamunanika. Dr. Muyingo was at the annual Education Day for Bamunanika Education Foundation, held at Kamira Church of Uganda Primary School in Luwero District. The Bamunanika Constituency Education Fund, introduced by Minister of State for Higher Education, Dr. Jesse Muyingo, which later was changed to Bamunanika Education Foundation, it has so far benefited over 20,000. The chairman of Bamunanika Education Foundation, Dr. Kiyinjirule, said the end of last year, the program had over 1,000 ongoing learners at different levels. State Minister for Higher Education promised to educate learners from the underprivileged families and encourage parents to own their responsibility. Dr. Muyingo encouraged the beneficiaries to complete the education cycle and to contribute towards ending poverty. The function was at Kimira Town Council Church of Uganda Primary School, which also coincided with Dr. Muyingo supporting over 100 elderly communities with a consignment of essentials needs and 5 million shillings towards roads and the youth with various sports items. Lango Diocese has taken assignment and significant steps in expanding its spiritual outreach by ordaining 26 priests to serve the Anglican Church. Bishop Professor Alfred Aurora emphasized that this addition will enable the Church to minister effectively to the growing number of people in need of spiritual guidance. The bishop charged the newly ordained priests to champion the fight against poverty, urging them to convey messages of economic transformation to their congregations. He stressed the importance of transforming lives and ensuring that communities experience positive change through their ministry. The ordination ceremony was a joyous and solemn event, drawing Christians and newly ordained priests from across the diocese. Bishop Professor Alfred Ora officiated at the function. And finally, from the local scene, as 2025 closes in, politicians are also strategizing and operating political party activities as set to tussle out at different levels. From Rukunjiri district, a former stronghold of opposition, the FDC NRM is repositioning itself. FDC and NRM are repositioning themselves as parties. Ever since his return to leadership as Jumbura County Member of Parliament, Security Minister retired Major General Jim Muhwezi has embarked on a fully political journey against the opposition. Muhwezi in Rukunjiri District's NRM chairperson and has for the last 4 years welcomed converts from across all parties, including FDC and these crossing into NRM. The move has entrenched NRM in the area. In Buganga, the sub-county, over 500 youth have defected to NRM. On the 19th of August 2024, Minister Jim Muhwezi visited Ruhinda sub-county for state duties at Kashenge Senior Secondary School. Here, over 300 members of the community were waiting for him. Earlier in July, at one of the minister's trip at the community baraza, boarded many crossed from FDC into NRM as well. On the 18th, still of July, the minister received over 250 people who crossed into NRM as well. And the story was no different on the 17th of August. Last year, the minister launched Maisha Development Circle, an event which also attracted close to 250 converts to NRM. Jim Muhwezi now embarks on the journey of ensuring that the opposition is wiped out by people crossing to NRM and working for development of the area.
Now let's move on to international news. The body of an Indian journalist who had reported on alleged corruption in the country has been found in a septic tank in Chhattisgarh state. Mukesh Chandraka, 32, went missing on New Year's Day, and his family registered a complaint with the police. His body was found on Friday in the compound of a road construction contractor in the Bijapur town area after officers tracked his mobile phone. 3 people have been arrested in connection with his death, reportedly including 2 of his relatives. A media watchdog has demanded a thorough investigation. Police in the Bijapur district did not find anything during an initial visit to the compound on 2nd January. However, after further inspection on 3rd January, we discovered Mukesh's body in the newly floored septic tank near the badminton court, a senior police officer said, referring to the fact that concrete slabs had been placed on top of the tank. Police said his body showed severe injuries consistent with a blunt force attack. Mr. Chandraka, a freelance journalist, had reported widely on alleged corruption in public construction projects. He also ran a popular YouTube channel, Buster Junction. Now moving on, a severe winter storm has hammered the United States, with meteorologists warning more than 60 million people in the country's east faced blizzard conditions, and some areas would see the heaviest snowfall in a decade. The National Weather Service on Sunday warned of ice, snow and gale force winds in states from the Central Plains to the Mid-Atlantic. A state of emergency has been declared in Kentucky, Missouri and Virginia. More than 60 million people are in the path of dangerous storms set to plunge the eastern half of the United States into a deep freeze of Arctic air through Monday, resulting in severe travel disruptions. Winter storm warnings have been issued from western Kansas to the coastal state of Maryland, Delaware and Virginia in an unusually broad 2,400-kilometer, which is about 1,500-mile swath under immediate threat. Disruptive winter storm to impact the Central Plains to the Mid-Atlantic through Monday, with widespread heavy snow and damaging ice accumulations. This according to the National Weather Service, which said in its latest report. Now coming back to Africa, all African passport holders are now able to visit Ghana without needing a visa, outgoing President Nana Akufo-Addo has said. He announced the plan last month, but in his final State of the Nation address on Friday, he said that the policy had come into effect at the beginning of the year 2025. Visa-free travel within the continent has long been an aspiration for those promoting Pan-African values and is seen as vital for economic cooperation. Ghana is now the fifth African country to offer this to travelers from the rest of the continent. Rwanda, Seychelles, the Gambia, and Benin are the others. I'm proud to have approved visa-free travel to Ghana for all African passport holders with effect from the beginning of this year, Akufo-Addo told lawmakers in his last address to Parliament before he steps down next week after 8 years in office. This is the logical step to the African Continental Free Trade Area and the workings of the largest trading bloc in the world, he said, referring to the zone that came into effect 4 years ago. In an annual African ranking of visa openness, Ghana was placed 5th last year, as it already offered visa-free travel to citizens of 26 continental countries. Well, with that, we come to the end of our international news, but we still have more in the press.
Well, speaking of the press, the New Vision writes, 8 trillion shillings oil deals up for grabs as 76% of EACOP pipes for entire project have been delivered. And then also you can read about the 8 high voltage electric poles that were vandalized. And then housemaid jailed 40 years over torturing 4-year-old. Find that report in today's New Vision. Then at the front page is UPDF holding a cultural gala. You can see the first Deputy Prime Minister, Rebecca Kadaga, wearing a Gomesi, touring a cultural gala exhibition organized at the Senior Command and Staff College in Chimaka, that is in Jinja City, under the leadership of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. Kadaga, who is also the Minister for East African Affairs, called for the unification of diverse culture to drive socio-economic transformation. And in the same regard, urged the UPDF to retain cultural studies in its training, noting that it enhances understanding and promotes Uganda's rich heritage. And Hoima Hospital gets 8.4 billion shillings ICU facility. Find details with the New Vision as State House widens probe into the 7.6 billion shillings fake currency. That is with the New Vision. Now, the Daily Monitor writes, URA at a loss after Heritage wins case. Now, the implications, according to the Daily Monitor, is that the analysts warn that the outcome will have the effect of not only emptying the country's coffers, but also tainting her image in the eyes of parties with the potential to bring in foreign direct investment. Now, new tasks ahead for reshuffled permanent secretaries in the other news. Then Nejesa lost parents, 4 siblings in Bulambuli landslide. Find about that in the dailies. Then A couple's tale of raising child with sickle cell disease, the Daily Monitor writes. Then also in the other news, why Masaka taxi sector is shrouded in confusion. Also in the healthy living, Mpox, concern over festive gatherings as Rizidel Kasasira, farewell to a brother in arms. Daily Monitor gives you more of that. Now, the Kenya Daily Nation is writing, rough start for schools as term 1 is to have 13 weeks with 5 days for mid-term breaks, according to a new development. Now, one is the infrastructure crisis hits schools amid cash crunch as principals defy ministry order and increase school fees. Then also, parents and booksellers cry foul over textbook shortage as members of parliament want allocations sent to schools also raised. Now, rights activists resume demos over the abductions going on in Kenya. Now, Kindiki warns Gachagua and allies over incitement. Then, water towers at risk as guardians silenced. That is with the Daily Nation. Now, last the Citizen from Tanzania, how Tanzanian farmers reaped billions in 2024. The Tanzanian farmers laughed all the way to the bank in 2024 thanks to higher incomes driven by increased production of food and commercial crops and favorable prices. Then ex-Prime Minister reveals that do this to ensure peace during this year's polls. And then proposals to consider for your 2025 resolutions. Then lack of school counseling puts students at risk. A new report has found as transport stakeholders want tracking of drivers expanded. And that does it for our press review this morning.
Well, now we give you the inspiration song of the year, of the day, but then the year has just begun, so we might also begin it on quite a great note. Godie Bade from Swangs Avenue All Stars. Enjoy, we'll be right back.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Watch what God is going to do. Because I've seen for every rejection or hatred on my life, God has multiplied glory.
God is my body. God ye body. God ye body wangu. Ye body wange. God ye body. God is my body. God ye body wangu. Ye body wange. I'm on the rise. I'm on the rise. God on my side. I'm on the rise. Yeah. Hey, shitani, shaitwani, hita. Atutadeke mbera na ye yaseva. Fulino wakabi, savior. There is nothing that can mess with me and you.
Expectations. We are excited to start it on a very exciting note where we will be hosting one of the most significant events in the country that will be taking place here in Kampala. That is the Cardiff Kampala Summit. Now, on the 9th and the 11th of January 2025, Kampala will be hosting 55 leaders from Kampala will be hosting leaders from 55 African Union member states. These will include heads of state, ministers, farmers, development partners, and so many more. And this summit is supposed to shape the future of Africa's agriculture. So stick with us as we delve into expert conversations, and of course we will be speaking to opinion leaders regarding the same to see what this summit means to Uganda and the rest of Africa, what it means for your food, trade and livelihoods. So keep it locked on your national broadcaster because we'll be bringing you these events live, and we will be having these expert opinions and conversations live here on Good Morning Uganda, but also across different shows here on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Olive Monica Najuma to welcome you and usher you into this new year with our first show of 2025. But is Jerome Paul Sonko, and also in Studio B is Nyonyintano. Good morning, Chirabo, and welcome to 2025.
Happy New Year to our viewers. Happy New Year to you, Najuma Sonko, and the entire crew of Good Morning Uganda. Now, we are starting the year with a very important, extraordinary summit happening. Why am I calling it very important? Because this is going to be discussing issues of agriculture. And a very important thing to discuss concerning agriculture is resilient agro systems. Now, we've always talked about Uganda's backbone being agriculture, but you'll notice that a number of our people in Uganda are in subsistence agriculture. They live for the stomach. They only grow what to eat. They're not growing for selling or for commercial. But very important in this summit, when you talk about CADIP, which is the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which is a continental initiative aimed at eliminating hunger and reducing poverty. Now, why this conference to me is very important, actually. Like, most of African countries are in agriculture, but the challenge is we do not have resilient crops and agri-systems. That's why when you look at the greater horn of Africa, you find that people are in agriculture, but when drought comes, when famine comes, Uganda, we have very fertile soils. But do you believe that there are times when we run out of food? There is food insecurity in some parts of this country.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah yo, baby don't know.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000, or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, thank you so much for sticking with us. This is Good Morning Uganda. I'm Olive Monica Najuma, and this is our news brill. Now, in a special way, I would like to welcome you back from 2024 and the festive season right into the first show of 2025 here. The show that is Good Morning Uganda, the show that starts your day and ushers you into the rest of the day. And in a special way, we are ushering you into the first official work week of 2025. Work week because many people are going back to work today after a very long Christmas break. Some people broke off right at the beginning of December, others in the middle of December. But whatever it was, we are glad that you are alive and that you're healthy and that you're starting your day with us, and my name is Olive Monica Najuma. I am right with Jerome Paul Sonko. In Studio B, I have Chirabo Robert Nyonyintano. Now, what we do is normally have engaging conversations regarding different issues afflicting the nation. And where we start today, nurses under their union are asking government to back them up so that they can have formal employment in Middle Eastern countries, just like we have seen domestic workers do over the years. But according to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, they're saying there is no need for nurses to be externalized the way we've been externalizing domestic workers, saying that they can be employed here. But also there is the worry that the country may run out of nurses. But according to the union and their General Secretary, Annette Birungi, she says that there is no need to worry about the country running out of nurses because the board certified employs more nurses than the country and even the government can employ. So they are still saying, no, we need to be backed by the government to go work elsewhere, especially in the Middle East, since we cannot find jobs down here at home. It should be noted that we have had different strikes by nurses, ranging from issues like salary increments, job placements, to mention but a few. So are the nurses onto the money? Is there something here when it comes to them asking for government to back them up to be externalized for jobs in the Middle East? Well, that's the conversation we're delving into, and we'd like for you to be a part of the conversation through WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. Now, Jerome, when we look at what's going on with our nurses over the years, is it even over the years? I think every few months you're going to hear of an impending strike or a strike or government in talks with the nurses. But I would like for you to briefly paint a picture of what's really going on within the nursing sector currently.
Well, it kind of needs us to even look broadly at the entire health sector from the perspective of the human resource, or those that work directly in there. But in this case, looking into the nurses and midwives, is that the current state for them is they feel they need to also explore other opportunities away from Uganda. And how have we reached here? Is that to them they feel, one, the conditions under which they are working or subjected to in workspaces, especially those that are attached to government health facilities, they feel those conditions are bare minimum or are below the standards they expect from the time they've been going through school and all of these, getting into, you know, practicing of becoming health practitioners and what have you. So they kind of feel it should, they need the backing of the government to go away and maybe seek greener pastures. And we've had all this, and this happens in all sectors, where if at all you feel you're not comfortable with the conditions under which you're working in, that is salary, allowances, let's say work leaves and all of that, you feel that maybe you need to change environments.
So basically, now, it's normal to seek for more as long as you're in.
It is normal, especially if at all, you know, your demands, your personal demands are actually also rising day in, day out. But again, when you look at the state where they're in, there is also the bit of, you know, not being able to receive or earn what they expect to earn at the end of the day. Olive, let's face it, back in the time, everyone took different professions as, you know, the pride of any scholar or any practitioner in there. And some of the these professions were, you know, law, being a health practitioner, being a journalist, being a doctor, and at times we could admire people simply because of
the titles,
the professions. Not until you get into the real field of things to realize that, well, behind the title that someone is holding, there is always something that we never see. So at times there is a better image of it, and now the health practitioners at times feel like, if at all I am a nurse and people are expecting me to be earning a certain kind of fee, and I'm living in the, you know, in the shambles of poverty, I kind of feel I'm not in the best, I'm not earning in the best way of my profession, or I'm not earning from my, you know, from my books and the titles that I have attached to me. And the fact that also midwives and nurses at times are not so much considered within society, and that is,
what do you mean not considered?
Let me say, I want to put it in a local way that many people put a lot of respect if someone comes out and says that I'm a doctor. And it has actually forced many people in hospitals to start giving themselves titles of a doctor. many people despise nurses, apart from women who know the importance of these nurses.
Actually, it should not
You know?
even be women, Jerome. Nurses are the engine that runs the medical sector. The doctor will come and check on you, but guess who gives you patient care?
It is
Who
the
makes
nurse.
your life in hospital
and
easy?
at times
It's the
people do
nurse.
not put their mind to it, that without that nurse, at times even your recovery when you're in hospital may not be possible.
It won't be
And
possible.
if people have been admitted to hospital, like you've mentioned, at times you realize that there are doctors that you won't see in a week. The nurse will always be there. There will
Because
always
they're
be a nurse
supposed to give
24/7.
patient care,
And
yes.
when you look at the kind of work they do, and you try to put it into how much they earn, even in the private sector, it does not really fit within
So
the kind of
everywhere,
work.
working with the government, working with the private, sector, they
at
still
times
get
is
the
not
short
same.
end of the stick.
And that's why you see in the private sector many of the nurses who have the opportunities to go and work abroad or even work within the other states on the African continent, they never sleep on their opportunities. They will definitely strike. They will definitely strike that opportunity, hand in their CVs and all of that, only to seek for greener pastures.
Okay.
However, the unfortunate bit for those within the public sector, you will definitely realize that not so many of them have the backing of, let's say, their appointing officers who could ideally back them to go and work abroad. And at times, if you've been working in the public service, you will definitely need a backing from the central government, especially if you're working in countries like the Middle East, where some of these nurses feel they should go and work just like other casual laborers.
Okay,
Uganda.
so the question is the government right to deter nurses or to not back nurses from seeking employment, especially in countries like the Middle East? Well, that's the conversation we are delving into, because the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Union is representing its members who are seeking government backing to be externalized workers to the Middle East, just the same way as we have externalized labor to the Middle East in terms of security guards and domestic workers. Now, into that conversation, Chirabo is joining us from Studio B. Chirabo, what is, kindly help us understand the government's stance when it comes to externalization of labor as far as medical workers are concerned?
Well, thank you so much. Now, we are in a very tough situation, I must say. Why am I calling it tough situation? Because Uganda is on the list of countries that are not allowed to externalize nurses. Reason being given is that our nurse-to-patient levels or ratios are still very, very low to what is recommended internationally. So that means that at the look of things, Uganda has very few nurses, so it cannot externalize nurses, yet its health facilities are lacking enough numbers. But digging deep, this is not the actual truth. Statistics will reflect something different, and when you come on ground, it's another story. When you visit our health centers, government, you may find that, yes, it is true. You can have one nurse per over so many patients. And if you're to take those statistics, then therefore, if you do not have enough medical workers, here nurses in your facilities, then it is common sense you can't export. But let's look at the reality. The reality is we have so many nurses to fill these gaps, but we don't have capacity to absorb them. That government does not have the capacity to employ what is being churned out. So in the health facilities, there is scarcity, but when you go on the streets, when you go to private practitioners, there are so many. Now,
so it is the international standards that
because
are
you must have
us.
reached a level that shows I have enough, I can export. But your statistics are showing you have very little, you need to have more to come on board. Yet the reality is you have many, but because you're not employing them. Now, the nurses under their union are saying this is unfair to us. If you can't employ us as government, if you can't absorb us, we know there is somewhere else we can be absorbed, get employment, and at a better pay. Why then don't you speak to the powers be? Because you see, we are no longer, we are an independent country, but we are signatory to very many treaties and all that. We are, World Health Organization is one of the partners, and there are so many documentations that we have pinned our signature to be part of them. I was looking at and watching the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Among, saying World Health Organization listed Uganda as one of the countries not allowed to externalize nurses. But I think why they are calling upon government, speak the truth to them. Tell them actually the reality on ground, statistics speak different things.
Yes.
But actually it is failure. And I don't want to call this failure because you can only cut a coat according to your piece of cloth. Medical workers day in, day out are saying increase our pay. So you can't bring on more people, yet even those you have are craving for pay rise and you're failing to find the monies to pay them. So this is the dilemma. Can government speak to the powers that be, our development partners that know? For Uganda's case, let these people go and seek for work elsewhere. But also this has a risk. Because when you open this gap,
Yes.
the experienced, those that have been working, if there is a better door, they may go to these countries. Let's take an
Robert,
example.
are you going to hold people hostage just because
Let me
you're
just give
afraid
you-
of
let me
losing
just-
the experienced ones?
Let me just give you an example. A housemaid on average in Uganda gets about 150,000 a month.
On average, that's a bit high, but yeah.
On average, not so.
Okay.
Now, a housemaid, through the treaty or the agreement that Uganda has with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, gets 800,000.
Yes.
Now, compare 800,000 for a housemaid who is getting 150 back home. What would a medical worker be given in such a country? And don't you think there will be a huge migration? Just like today it's hard to find a housemaid. Previously it was very easy because men have gone to these countries. Won't we have a huge migration of nurses to the Middle East? And what may we be left with? Will that mean that they will create gap now for government to employ others as these ones go out?
Thank you so much, Robert, for that question. And I would like to throw that question back to Joram. Do you think that when we open that door, it might put us at a risk of a huge migration of midwives and nurses and other medical personnel and that the country may find itself grappling with lack of nurses?
Yes, sure. And I think with the government here, there is a bit of playing defensive. That it's not that they do not wish well for the nurses and midwives in this situation, but they kind of feel that bit of the brain drain that will happen. That, you know, you're going to let go of, let's say, nurses and midwives who have been here for 5 to 10 years. Now, every year they have spent working in these sectors, they have gained experience and they know how to handle certain situations. Meaning, if at all you have all these numbers heading out, we've seen the level at which Ugandans have been moving outside. And just recently, during the festive season, the UAE had to even block visa
Over
access,
10,000.
you know. You can easily see.
Yeah.
And that was not only for Ugandans who are going to work, but also Ugandans who are just going to travel. But when you look into the situation over the past 10 years, how Ugandans have been moving to the Middle East, not only to Saudi Arabia, where we have an agreement already, but moving to countries like Qatar, moving to Bahrain, moving to Saudi, you know, name all these countries.
But Joram,
Now, when you look into the health practitioners, imagine, Olive, in a situation where many Ugandans who have been leaving, others have not been having even qualifications, but they've left. Now, imagine if you have over 5,000, okay, over 20,000 nurses and midwives leaving the country every year simply because you've failed.
I would like to ask you a question. How many nurses are churned out every single year?
I want to believe we have quite a number.
Good.
I
Now,
don't want to...
on that answer,
Okay,
Gerald.
on that answer,
yes.
My side of view is we need to give them the chance to go. And we also need to give them the backing. Because as much as we're looking at the brain drain, but there's also something to do with brain gain.
Yes.
That the more they move out of the country and, you know, learn from different, you know, cultures, or let's say learn from different workspaces, they're adding something onto their kind of career. And in the long run, you will see others coming back to share tips here and there.
Even be that as it may, Jerome, don't you think that the government also stands to benefit? Because, I mean, money that comes from the diaspora, the government makes some good money via taxes regarding the same.
Well,
Robert has something to say.
It actually benefits because when you look into this, there is, with a country like Saudi Arabia, where there is a bilateral, the government, according to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, there can be room for a conversation there because at least there is a bilateral between.
I think the problem is not the bilateral agreements. The problem is that, as Robert shared, the international standards, World Health Organization has limited Uganda. We are not allowed to export our nurses because, according to their statistics, the nurse-patient level is still low. Yet we know that we have many that are qualified to be nurses, but when you go to hospitals, you don't find them there. Now, Robert, you had something to supplement onto a point that Jerome was making.
Now, this, I think, to call a spade, this is a very, I began by saying it's a very hard nut to crack. Why? When you let go of these people, we talked about the brain drainage.
Robert, you're making it sound like Pharaoh and the children of Israel.
Actually, this is the situation.
Yes.
You know, any country, the health sector is very important. The health sector is a priority because we are talking about life.
Yes.
Now, you must be very tactical. If you don't have capacity to absorb and you're still caught all the time on pressure to increase pay. Every time you have the nurses talking about increase our pay. Now, if you have people that already the ones you have are not satisfied or you're not giving them according to maybe regional standards or global standards, and then you open a window for them to go, two things are going to happen. Many will leave. But even these that have been demanding you to increase their pay will either demand for more because there is a window there, and as state or government, you may be held in a tight situation.
So, Robert, that brings me
to
the
tactfully government to manage. Because I want to believe if government stepped up talks and said, look, the reality of the thing is we just lack capacity. We churn out about 20,000 nurses every year. 20,000 from these various nursing. If we look at recently, those that were craving to go for internship, you remember last year?
Yes.
Where interns were telling government, look, we did study. These were medicals, they had the doctors, but also the nurses were there. We need to go and do internship, we need to be placed. But government lacked the resources sufficiently enough.
So, Robert, that brings me to the next question. What alternatives could the government employ to ensure better employment opportunities down here in Uganda and to be able to retain medical workers? Because the truth of the matter is they want to leave because they don't have jobs or they are not well paid.
One, increase the budget allocation to the health sector in the priority of recruitment of nurses and their welfare. Because we have a budget, but what percentage of our budget, yes, a lot went to human capital, what percentage of our budget goes to the health sector? And to be specific, that we give to the health sector, what percentage every year goes to recruitment and welfare? So it all begins with the budget. How much are you planning that this year we are having this number, our budget on recruitment, on salary enhancement is this as government. So deliberate and intentionally to focus on this. Not just saying the health sector was given this amount of billions. Yes, but how much of that? Maybe many went to purchasing drugs, much went to building new hospitals, vehicles. When you go to Ministry of Health, you may think it is Ministry of Transport. You see, so many vehicles are there. Some are, when you go to health centers at districts, almost every district has a vehicle that broke down that was bought millions of money. So should we prioritize? I'm not saying vehicles are not needed, and because I'm not talking of ambulances that have broken down, but look at these fleets, sport fleets. Can we channel that money to recruitment? Can we channel that money to welfare of these nurses? I think to me that is the best we can do. Otherwise, truth be told, you'll find that one point these are going to go as domestic workers. Then when they reach there, because they have the ability, someone will present papers and they will find their way. Look at those we have in Canada. Look at those we have in some of in United States of America. Have they gone through formal procedure that they are leaving Uganda as medical workers? Some have gone as students.
Robert, they haven't, but the reason why I think nurses are seeking government backing is because it would then make it easier for them to leave. You know how hard it is to get a visa to different countries or even to work there.
Yes.
So this is exactly why they're requesting for government backing. I think the government finds itself between a rock and a hard place on this, because on one hand, it wants its people to be employed. On the other, it has to follow the WHO standards, but also we do not want to create a situation where we do not have enough nurses in our hospitals. Though if you ask me, I think we are running scared. But Jerome, coming back to you now, Robert did mention that the government ought to increase the budget when it comes to the health ministry, and also the amount that goes specifically to nurses and midwives. But you've also heard in the medical sector that even the doctors and specialists at some point were striking regarding a salary increment. Now the specialists got their increment and some other doctors. Now we have nurses who are saying two things. One, we are not gainfully employed, and two, we are not employed at all. Those are two different scenarios. So in your opinion, what are the specific policy frameworks or agreements you would like to see implemented to facilitate safe and regulated international job placements for health workers?
One, we need to have, we need to enhance our capacities. You know, capacity building needs to be really reinforced. You know, the most worrying bit about our employment world today is that even on entry, someone will still earn peanuts. Why am I using peanuts? Is that our work systems have been designed in a way that if you're just getting your first job, or if you're getting on job, whether you have the qualifications or not, you're not going to earn as much as you want. Every workspace wants you to grow within the system in terms of payment, and growing through the system means, if at all the first design bit of the payment is 200,000 Ugandan shillings, yes, whether you are a Sonko who has done medicine for 4 years, that is what you're supposed to earn. And when it comes to capacity building, we need to look into the kind of salaries, and we need to revise the salary structures, really. We need to also look into the issue to do with recruitment. That if you're heading into hospitals and you realize that they are understaffed, then that opens up room for why do we have few nurses or doctors or health practitioners, name it, in this space. And after that, as we look into the budget allocations, because when you look into the past 5, not even the past 5 years, when you look back into the financial years of our budgets, the health sector is among the top 3 priorities. Always,
but where
when it comes
does
to the
that,
allocation.
in the health sector, where does that money go?
The worry is, regardless of the priorities, it being amongst the priorities, Olive, do they receive enough money? Okay. Because you can be a priority where you're not receiving money, but according to the ratings of how the money is disbursed, you are a priority according to the percentage.
Okay, let's say you're getting the money. How is the money prioritized?
Now that is the worry, bringing us to a discussion of, you know, you are having the money, but do we have retention programs? Because with the retention programs, the best way to retain any given worker is making sure that the kind of money you're paying them is handsome, and it also comes in on time. It may not be too much money, but it should be coming in on time, and the allowances also need to be there. And then, amongst the other bit of the retention programs is the kind of environment under which these people are working. Is it, you know, does it help them to grow their careers? If it is toxic, then there is no room for growth there. Does it support them to, you know, to go back and, let's say, study further? Because we've seen with people who go and work abroad, many of them first go through different studies. If at all someone had a degree here, you'll see them upgrading the other side, a postgraduate or even a master's, so be it. And they try to first add on a skill so that the kind of paycheck they are receiving is equivalent to their level of studies. But here, regardless of your level of studies, if at all your employer has a given payment structure, you're never going to get from it. And so for me, I think the reason as to why many of them are leaving is, one, because of the money, and because of no room for employment. They are not being recruited. And even those who are in the who are in the private sector, Olive, surprisingly, these ones are even working under the worst conditions. Seriously? Because when you look at, we have so many, let's say, clinics and private hospitals, and many people who come out to, you know, to cry for not being paid. Surprisingly, you'll find many in the private sector, because with the public, some of them have at times become comfortable with the fact that at least, regardless of the situation, the money will come. But now in the private sector, not very comforting, which because is, okay, you have monthly and weekly bills. Monthly and weekly bills to pay. But now the worst part in the private sector is you don't even know whether the money will come. The next thing you hear is you have a notice that you've been laid off. And this is something that happens in all squares of the private sector. And you have areas, we've seen people reporting to cases that have been working for this hospital, even people working for pharmacies. Someone tells you, I've been working for this pharmacy for the past 6 months, and they've only paid me 2 months.
So it's also, you're opening a different room for discussion, Joram. It looks like nurses and midwives are also not protected by the government. Let's look at that briefly. Those who decide to stay and are working here, how best can the government protect them? Because if you're talking about people being laid off with arrears, not paid, then it means there is even something worse going on locally.
No, you know, when it comes to the bit of the protection, we need to have the conversations of, does the government have that bit of assessment to know that these people are happy where they are? You know, do we have these regular checkups on the people that we've employed, or we only employ them and recruit them and that is done? Because besides, after we are done with the recruitment, do we even check and see the level of performance?
How about in the private sector?
The private sector, the beauty about the private sector is it's money-oriented, meaning there is no room for forgiveness at times.
No, I'm saying, how do we protect the health workers working in the private sector?
For the private sector, I think this is where the government needs to step up a little bit, because we've given private sector players a lot of control over their employees.
Their taxpayers.
You know, yes, they are taxpayers, and the fact that we have a free economy, at times the private sector players always have a huge say in how they control their employees. At times, a private sector player will go months without paying, let's say, an employee, and they go away with it. They can easily go on without, you know, with, let's say, mistreating their employees or over-exploiting them, and they go away with it. Government, on the other hand, can't, because people will report to government, and of course government will look into the first immediate supervisors who are likely to lose their jobs in case these kind of whistleblowers come out. Now, for protecting them in the private sector, the government really needs to be very strict on this. I was going to say laws, and I realized that we have so many laws that are here, and many of them are not so much practical on ground. So I think we just need to be very strict and intentional. Intentional in the sense that you are protecting Ugandans who are highly contributors to the growth of the economy and the growth of this country. Meaning, you are going to be losing people, and we've seen this, Olive, over the years. Many people have started leaving careers and switching, or have started switching careers, simply because the career they chose and they had passion for no longer gives them what they want.
Well, thank you so much.
This is not what we want for our health
for the health sector,
because if doctors start leaving, or even teachers start leaving, who is going to educate the country? Who's going to take care of you know, the sick people? So
I totally understand. Now, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. We are looking at the future of Uganda's health care system. Nurses, through their body, the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Union, are seeking government backing for them to be able to externalize labor to different countries, among those the Middle East. Now, Robert, the Ugandan Nurses and Midwives Union, it is at the forefront of this. But Jerem has mentioned so many issues that are afflicting nurses locally, both in the public and private sector. So I would like, as we close, for you to help us understand the importance of health worker welfare and motivation in national healthcare outcomes.
Well, a number of issues Joram pointed out. I would advise nurses and men in various professions to join unions, because now it is the Nurses and Midwives Union advocating for this. Now, the challenge we have is, much as it is a right for everyone working, either in private or government, to be a member of the union, because unions are the only ones that have that power legally to bargain and push for you in your profession. So wherever you are, your workplace, be a member of a union. If you're nurses, join your union, because then they will have the power to advocate for their members, and they will push for this mistreatment, welfare that is not that very good, through your union. Now, away from that, for any profession, we must understand that welfare is important, because it motivates. You see, it is different, someone coming to work and someone working. It's like taking a cow or a horse to drink water. It may arrive at the river, but never take water. Now, for the health sector, it is even worse, because these are handling life and human life. These are not veterinary doctors, or if they are, veterinary nurses. No, these are dealing with the lives of people. They are dealing with the health of people. So we ought, as government, to motivate them, to give them whatever it takes for them to work, but also what they need to use. I may have a good pay, but when I go practical, I don't have equipment to use as a nurse. They don't have personal protective equipment. Someone comes in, an accident victim, they don't have the gloves. Protective gears are not there. So how are they going to deliver? So we need to ensure that for a successful health system, worth money and worth helping the citizens and celebrating it therefore, we improve their welfare, we look at their pay, but also what it takes them. I go back to where I began from by saying we need to be intentional on this. If government can speak to World Health Organization, show statistics not matching with reality on ground, because we have them, there are so many. Some of them are working in funny clinics deep in these villages. Yet they dream of better pay somewhere else. Are we going to suffocate them? If we can present our case, why not externalize them? But also, how do we ensure that even when this window is open, still we have more in this country, and maybe some would even feel better working here with their families present in a language and people they understand better than going there if our budget allocation is intentional, is specific, is prioritizing nurses recruitment, is prioritizing nurses welfare. Because when you go to any hospital, any health facility, the first person to receive you is the nurse, and still the last person to see you off in case things don't go well, what we call the last office,
yes,
will be the nurse.
Well, thank you so much, Robert and Joram, for your views, and thank you, dear viewer, for sticking with us. We've been looking at the future of Uganda's healthcare system and also looking at how we can balance brain drain with capacity building here in Uganda. Now, Good Morning Uganda continues. Up next is Good Morning Uganda Business with Joram Paul Sonko. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to Good Morning Uganda, your go-to morning show to kickstart your day with all the latest updates.
Let's dive deep into issues that matter most to you.
In a world of stories waiting to be told, the headlines are your guide. Navigate the currents of news and knowledge with our daily updates of newspapers. Stay informed, stay empowered.
From the roar of the crowd to the thunder of victory, witness the drama unfold with our sports updates. Whether on the field or in the stands, join us as we celebrate the spirit of champions.
Rise with Good Morning Uganda, weekdays from 6:30 a.m. Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah yo, baby don't know.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable. In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, every story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome to Inside Broadcasting.
Sharing with you the process behind what you see on the screens.
My name is Lorene Masika Kazimoto.
Step behind the scenes and witness the magic that brings your daily broadcasts to life.
That's why I come out openly to actually tell you that I'm an investigative journalist. That even when you see me here, I'm actually investigating you guys. So you should be aware about that.
Experience the hustle, the heart, and the human stories of our on and off-air staff.
I see my phone ringing and I'm like, ooh, which number is this? I hear the president on the other line.
The president of the Republic of Uganda.
Of Uganda, yes.
Be inspired, amazed, and part of the journey that powers Uganda's most captivating TV and radio moments.
Because good broadcast comes down to an individual. They should be artistic.
This is Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting with Mark Wadula.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, business it is, and we start off with the National Agriculture Research Organization that has called on the public to adopt agricultural research innovations that are developed by the institution to enhance agricultural productivity and improve overall health. Now, Dr. Titus Alikai, the Director of Research at the National Crop Resources Research Institute, revealed that NARO has developed over 100 agricultural technologies. However, these innovations have not yet been fully embraced by communities. The technologies include high-yielding crop and animal varieties, biofortified crops, rich in essential nutrients for vulnerable populations, and post-harvest management solutions. These advancements are tailored to address challenges such as climate change, nutrition, and the promotion of commercial agriculture. NARO has also made significant strides in combating pests and diseases that have severely impacted agricultural productivity. Another notable achievement is the development of an anti-tick vaccine by the National Livestock Resources Research Institute. And once this is approved for commercialization, the institute plans to produce 20 million doses annually. Another of this is that to ensure the maximum protection for livestock farmers, we'll need to administer the vaccine in 3 doses at the prescribed intervals. Additionally, NARO is tackling other livestock diseases such as foot and mouth disease, Newcastle disease, and Gamboro. Now, with 70% of NARO's innovations adopted so far, the organization is calling on farmers and stakeholders to embrace these technologies in order to strengthen food security and improve nutritional health. Now, away from that, we talk matters unemployment because the Commissioner for Small-Scale Industries in the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovations, Professor Julius Nyanzi, has rallied youth under the do-it-yourself arrangement. He revealed that most youth fail in businesses for fear of tackling the problem of unemployment in their localities. Professor Nyanzi, also proprietor of Prof Bioresearch, says that Prof Bioresearch can mentor youth to start businesses in over 1,000 business ventures. We have the details to this report.
But when you're down, you can't do anything. Yes, most people thought Past Prof Bioresearch employs about 100 youth. My company is full of young people. That speaks volume. I myself have not made 35, but we have money to push. The most important thing is to always do it yourself. Let other stakeholders come along, but it is all upon you. But most youth think that it's all about another person to push their agenda. It is you. It begins with you. No one will lift you up. First lift yourself, others will push you. But when you're down, you can't do anything. Yes, most people talk about capital, especially young people. But it's not a capital. It is the intellectual. What do you know? Because some young people have a following on social media. You may find that someone has 1 million followers on Facebook, 2 million followers on Instagram. But how are you translating those followers into money economy? How are you turning them into something valuable, something you can earn on? That means you should get into production. Do something, even if it's something like making a scrub. A scrub is easy to make. You get honey and sugar, you mix and brand it very well. Before you know it, you're selling it to the young women out there or young girls who are looking at having a good skin. But once you're selling words, gospel, you can't move. So get something into the market, because the market is there and the market is expanding and it's becoming one. But we Ugandans and Africans, we are not selling. What we are selling is nyash. You may, actually I can call this economy the nyash economy of young people, because they are not putting out anything in the market. So let us get in production. That's the most important thing. And once you get in the production, begin with your circles, those Facebook followers, those WhatsApp colleagues, the church people. Sell something, even if you sell 10 units per day, and you can be able to make 20,000. By the end of the day, the business will keep on growing.
All right, now that does it for business, but now we've turned our focus onto the forex market to see how it has been faring. Close of business Friday evening. And by the look of things, the US dollar was buying at 3,674.18, while selling at 3,684.18. By midday, the US dollar was buying at 3,672.86, while selling at 3,682.86. And then closing time saw the US dollar buy at 3,671.05, while selling at 3,681.05. The Great Britain pound was buying at 4,551.73, while selling at 4,564.13. The euro closed at 3,773.47, while selling at 3,783.75. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.40, while selling at 28.48. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.50, while selling at 1.51. The South African rand was buying at 196.20, while selling at 196.73. And well, of course, those are figures courtesy of the central bank, and they are updated 3 times daily, Monday to Friday. Well, that does it for business this Monday, the 6th of January 2025. Coming up is Olive Monica Najuma with the KMU agenda as we look more deeper into the upcoming CADEP Summit. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to Good Morning Uganda, your go-to morning show to kickstart your day with all the latest updates.
Let's dive deep into issues that matter most to you.
In a world of stories waiting to be told, the headlines are your guide. Navigate the currents of news and knowledge with our daily updates of newspapers. Stay informed, stay empowered.
From the roar of the crowd to the thunder of victory, witness the drama unfold with our sports updates. Whether on the field or in the stands, join us as we celebrate the spirit of champions.
Rise with Good Morning Uganda, weekdays from 6:30 a.m. Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, don't
can now get all the chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the MyMTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Maskari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome to Inside Broadcasting,
sharing with you the process behind what you see on the screens.
My name is Lorraine Masika Kazimoto.
Step behind the scenes and witness the magic that brings your daily broadcasts to life.
That's why I come out openly to actually tell you that I'm an investigative journalist. That even when you see me here, I'm actually investigating you guys. So you should be aware about that.
Experience the hustle, the heart, and the human stories of our on and off-air staff.
I see my phone ringing and I'm like, ooh, which number is this? I hear the president on the other line.
The president of the Republic of Uganda.
Of Uganda, yes.
Be inspired, amazed, and part of the journey that powers Uganda's most captivating TV and radio moments.
Because good broadcast comes down to an individual. They should be artistic.
This is Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting.
Inside Broadcasting with Mark Wadula.
Uganda will host the African Union Extraordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government from the 9th to the 11th January 2025 at the Munyonyo Commonwealth Resort and Convention Center. The summit will consider and adopt the new Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CADIP framework, and sign the Kampala Declaration to run for the next 10 years. The CADIP Kampala 2025 Summit will unite over 2,000 delegates, including government leaders, private sector and stakeholders, under the theme, Building Resilient Agri-Food Systems in Africa.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
For sticking with us here on Good Morning Uganda, it's time for our agenda segment where we delve deeper into conversations with policymakers and opinion leaders regarding different topics that we normally have here in this segment. Now, like I mentioned earlier when we were starting the show, Uganda will be hosting from the 9th to the 11th of January 2025. The country will be hosting all 55 African Union member states, and we will have heads of state, we will have ministers, we will have farmers, but we will also have development partners and many more. We will be having what we call the CADIP Kampala Summit, and this summit will shape the future of agriculture in Africa under the theme Building Resilient Agri-Food Systems in Africa. And we have so much to unpack when it comes to the CADIP Summit that is happening here in Kampala. What a way to start the year. I'm excited about the same, and I'm joined by Agnes Chirabo, who is the Executive Director, that is Food Rights Alliance. She will be having a deeper conversation with me regarding CADIP. She has been around for the last decade, involved in this from the grassroots to where it is today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm delighted, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
What a wonderful moment to start a year with.
I know, right?
Yes.
I'm excited. But also, just a small conversation I had with you right before we came on air. It shows that you are the right person to have this conversation with. But first of all, before we delve into the conversation for today, I'd like to know more about Food Rights Alliance.
Oh, thank you so much. Maybe they are better people than me. But for today, it is me that God has chosen.
Yes.
And I was called and responded. Food Rights Alliance is a civil society organization in Uganda, which is a coalition of right to food advocates. And our vision is to live in a world free from hunger and malnutrition. It is just the foundation of everything. We also believe that actually the world is hungry. There is a viewer that is watching us, or maybe he who knows a person who slept hungry, that child that is malnourished, that will never live to its full potential. That situation doesn't necessarily mean the absence of food. It doesn't mean that we are short of nutritious foods in the world, even in Uganda here. It is just a symbol that we are actually have deep-rooted governance issues in our food system. And for us, we believe if we address the governance issues of our food system, then we are all equitably going to enjoy safe, healthy, and nutritious diets. So we also believe that hunger is the uttermost form of poverty, the failure to feed yourself. But as a human right, the right to food is not the right to be fed. You must feed yourself and live in dignity. So this is the kind of work that we do. No wonder you find us in such spaces like CADIP to make sure that we clean up the stream and every person in Africa enjoys safe, healthy, and nutritious diets at all times, not only during Christmas festive season.
That's very, very key, because some people just remember that people need to be fed around the festive season. All right, now getting into the meat of our conversation, we have the CADIP Kampala Declaration.
Sure.
Yes, so what motivated the African Union heads of state to adopt the Kampala CADIP Declaration?
I think first and foremost, we need to congratulate ourselves as the people of Uganda. In this particular sense, that this is going to be the third generation of this particular framework. CADIP is the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, a program framework that was initiated and agreed upon by African Union heads of states and governments way back in 2003. And I know people that have been keen on issues of agriculture and food security, at least they've ever heard of Maputo. They have ever heard of the demand that governments, including our government, should allocate 10% of our national budget to agriculture. This stems from CADIP of 2003, a declaration that was made in Maputo. And it is always taking a generation of 10 years. So after 10 years, in 2014, again, heads of governments recommitted themselves. They actually realized that they cannot do away with this particular framework and recommitted themselves to going ahead with this particular framework. They took stock of the so many learnings in the past decade of 2003 to 2013, because then that particular regime, we focused on the 10% budget allocation and achieving 6% growth in agriculture. The assumption then was, if we get these two targets right, then we are going to see transformation in the agriculture sector. We are going to see hunger reduced. We are going to see fewer children getting malnourished. We are going to see so many things, including poverty, reduced among the people of Africa. But in 2014, there was a learning that actually this was not possible because the two targets were far-fetched and we needed details, because the devil always lies in the details.
That's right.
So when the heads of governments and heads of states renewed their commitment to this particular framework in Maputo in 2014, they actually assigned the technocrats to work on the details. And this time around, in Maputo, we ended up with 7 commitments. Maputo, we had 2. In Malabo, we had 7. We went down to break some bit of details where Africa needs to focus on to achieve the transformation. Again, in the last decade of Malabo, which is 2014 to 2025, they even put a performance framework, measuring performance, because more often than not, governments all over go and make commitments here, commitments there, declaration here, declaration there. They go back to their capitals and sit and do nothing about it. But the concluding regime of CADAP, they put a performance framework where governments are required to provide a report, a very scientific, calculated, inclusive report every after 2 years on how they are performing on these targets.
Yes.
They even came up with performance indicators, and they weighed these indicators. The people that are statisticians out there, they know what I'm talking about. They even put weights on these indicators. And then we are supposed to come back in the country, and then we work, we collect data on these indicators, and every 2 years, we have been submitting reports. All countries have been submitting reports on how they are performing. So this concluding generation of CADAP has been a little bit rigorous. We have actually worked so hard. Some of us, we are about to become program officers of CADAP because of the working.
Yes.
And the working that runs beyond just a declaration in Marabo, but making sure that the commitments are integrated in our national agriculture investment plans. They are taken care of in the annual budgets. Then we look at their performance in the joint annual sector reviews every year. Then every after 2 years we are preparing a report, which is a very difficult and complex process. And then we are working with the technocrats at the African Union level to make sure that if an indicator is not attainable, if there is something that we think we need to measure but initially it was not recognized, it is validated and then included on the list of indicators. So it has been work at regional, at the East African level in the case of Uganda, at the continental level, but also back home at national and local level.
Yes.
Because for us here in Uganda, business happens at the countryside, in the local government. So we have been working to see that we translate this declaration into investment plans, into interventions, into action points that are done. And therefore, the second generation is coming to an end.
And we are moving into
and we are going to submit the final report this year. All countries are going to submit the final report this year, 2025, and then the succeeding commitment is happening in Kampala. My dear, I need to tell you that for the first generation, everybody was referencing Maputo, 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 Maputo. For the last concluding decade, we have been saying Malabo, 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 Malabo. Guess what, viewers? For the next 10 years, the whole of Africa, the whole world is going to be referencing Kampala.
Wow. Sounds sweet to my ears. And well done. You've put in so much work.
And we continue to put in a lot of work, because what happens is that when our representatives, either negotiators or leaders, whoever, they go and make these commitments, the commitments remain hanging. I'm not government, I'm not the spokesperson of CADAP at any level. I only do the coordination of non-state actors in the East African region, but also at country level. It is incumbent on us, the people of Africa, and in this case, the people of Uganda, to keep track of what our governments are committing wherever they are making these commitments. This time around, you people viewing us from Uganda, the commitments are going to be made in Kampala. Please, we should not ask anyone after these commitments, after this week, that then what happened? Let us be enthusiastic to make sure that these commitments translate. I need to tell you some piece of good news.
Yes.
This declaration and action plan that is going to be made this week was validated here in Uganda in November last year. And that was very, very, actually, I think it is November last year. It was validated here. And I liked the enthusiasm and the proactiveness of our people from the National Planning Authority and our people from the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industries and Fisheries. Because they came running to obtain the draft action plan. To do what? To see whether it is in harmony with the National Development Plan 4, and therefore subsequently the investment plan that the Ministry of Agriculture is going to be implementing. And I'm here to tell the people of Uganda, if you look at the declaration, the way the draft is looking, we are not yet having the final declaration until when it is made.
Yes.
But the draft that we have access to is a public document. If you look at it, pillar number 1 is about a commitment to sustainably improve agricultural production and agro-industrialization. What is our flagship program in the National Development Plan for agro-industrialization? So, I was happy with our officials here that they knew they were framing a National Development Plan for, and which is going to be the guiding investment framework of a country. They ran very fast because we have been engaging in the last decade. They ran very fast to ensure that this time around, the Kampala Declaration is harmonized with the National Development Plan 4, especially the program on agro-industrialization, such that when we put investments here in agro-industrialization, we are also collecting data on the indicators of the CADAP. This is how international declaration make meaning and sense to the natives, the people of a particular country, which has not been largely happening. I therefore wish to congratulate ourselves. Number 1, as Uganda, that we are hosting a landmark event, and we must be enthusiastic. I'm very sure that UBC is going to be live in Munyonyo.
Definitely.
Please, if you have not been accredited to participate physically in Munyonyo, there are 2 options still that are remaining. Number 1, watch UBC. Number 2, Those of you who are working on IT, you're on phone and what, there is going to be an online link. We must interest ourselves this time around as the people of Uganda and be part of history. When they will be referring to Kampala Declaration, you're going to say, I was there, I watched, I saw what exactly happened, and this is how I'm positioning myself to take part in the implementation, because the harder piece is coming, which is implementation, monitoring performance, and reporting on performance.
Well, thank you so much. I'm having a conversation with Agnes Chirabo, who is the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance. Now, Kampala on the 9th to the 11th of January 2025 will be hosting the CADAP Summit here in Kampala at the Speak Resort Convention Center in Munyonyo. And you should be a part of the goings and outings of this summit, because UBC, like Agnes here put it, will be hosting the events live. So you should be part and parcel of this event. Now, I love what you have shared about the first generation and the second generation declarations. And of course, now we are looking at the third one, which will be declared sometime this week in Kampala. The Kampala Declaration has a nice ring to it. But let's again look at this declaration. How does it, in your opinion, how does this declaration align with the Agenda 2063 and the Malabo Declaration on Agriculture Transformation?
Wow. You see, Agenda 2063 to the first runners today is like we have Vision 2040 in Uganda. The broader vision of how we wish Uganda to look like by 2040.
Yes.
So when we talk about Agenda 2063, is how African Union heads of governments and states visualized how they want Africa to look like by 2063. And therefore, as we do implement our Vision 2040 in Uganda, using 5-year national development plans, the Agenda 2063 is a very broad visionary framework for Africa that talks about all things that you can think about in Africa. But specifically, it also has an aspect of our Africa agri-food system, the food security, the nutrition, the dignity of the people in as far as being food secure, and how the people of Africa should eat by 2063. Therefore, that's how we come to now develop 10-year journeys. You get?
Yes.
We come to develop these 10-year journeys, one of which is now going to be made in Kampala. So the CADAP is implementing one single provision within the Agenda 2063 regarding the agriculture transformation. So that's the harmony that I can talk about. And more often than not, many of us think things move in isolation. Like I have said, people don't know that there are people here that do not know that Vision 2040 is not an implementation framework, but National Development Plan is an implementation framework. Therefore, the National Development Plans are the ones that we use at operational level to achieve our vision of 2040. So CADAP, like now the Kampala Declaration, are the operational framework that we are working on to see that we don't miss our vision of 2063.
So in simple terms, CADAP is the working framework that enables us to achieve Vision 2063.
And if we get it wrong at operational level, don't dream that it will be right at the destination level.
All right.
Yes.
So that also explains the lots of work and effort that have been put in place over the last 20 years.
Indeed, and people, viewers this morning need to appreciate that there is no implementation that takes place at African Union level. By the way, they are not people that live in a government called Africa. People need to know that. I have more often heard, even yesterday, I heard somebody who made a statement, but for me, this is a subject of awareness creation, which we are supposed to do, that are saying, those African Union things, you know, they are just the African Union, you know, we love complaining. I'm here to inform the viewers this morning that any decision that is made at African Union level is never implemented at African Union level because there is no such a government called Africa. Decisions that are made at African Union, like the decisions that are going to be made this week, are implemented by African Union member states, and in this case they are supposed to be implemented by the government of Uganda. You see the relationship?
Yes.
So please, before you condemn that Malabo was never implemented, you know, here we have those open statements. That one was never implemented. That one was never implemented. If it was not implemented, but your government became party to it, please don't blame any other person. Blame your government. And two, these are investment guiding frameworks. They are not laws. They are not, they may not say that we are going to drag a government in court that they did not implement CADEP. It is a framework that continents elsewhere working in blocks is the in thing.
Yes.
That's why we are seeing the United States of America. We see the United Arab Emirates.
Yes.
We see European Union. People are putting themselves together because the Baganda say agali awamu batakaba agalana bebalima akambugu. You know that sense of working together.
And Mzungu puts it easier. He says, if you want to go fast,
yes,
go alone.
Go alone.
If you want to go far,
go with so many other people. So these frameworks, that's why I congratulated the National Planning Authority and the people from Ministry of Agriculture who ran very fast to ensure that NDP4, National Development Plan 4, is aligned to this particular framework to ease implementation.
Yes.
Again, for us as civil society, we are having a side session in this summit. We are hosting so many side sessions as non-state actors, and there is a particular side session where we are presenting a case of Uganda, where we have been able to deepen CADAP to the last mile woman in Uganda. How? Because we made sure that the CADAP Malabo inspirations were reflected in the National Development Plan 3. We have consistently been tracking some of these things in the annual budget frameworks. We have worked with the local governments where the rubber hits the tarmac to see that these inspirations are reflected in the National Development Plan 3, including our famous parish development model, and these are the programs that reach out to the last mile woman. So the last mile woman in Uganda may not know that she has experienced CADAP because that is not what she wants. The last mile woman in Uganda, what she needs is agriculture extension.
That's right.
Seeing an extension worker. The last mile woman, what she's interested in is making sure that when she accesses inputs, they are credible inputs. So we make sure that these are inspirations in the Malabo, by the way. So we track them up to that last mile woman. So please don't ask us, or do not waste your time complaining about how the implementation is going to be, because they made sure that, number one, we participate in framing this declaration. I'm very excited as a person. This is one declaration that I have taken active participation even in shaping it.
All right. Well, that is Agnes Chirabo, who is the executive director, Food Rights Alliance. Now, Agnes, I would like for us to look at sustainable food production and trade. The declaration sets a target to increase agri-food output by 45% by 2035. What specific strategies are proposed to achieve this?
Okay, the first question is, do we need that commitment?
Do we?
Is there a problem?
Do we need the commitment?
Do we need the commitment to increase sustainable food production, agro-industrialization, and trade? Yes, we do. Because our national statistic, this time round, I'm going to go native. I'm going to become selfish.
Okay.
Before I look at East Africa and I look at Africa as people of Uganda, we know what is happening in our country in as far as food security is concerned. The recent census vividly told us that 4 in every 10 people struggle to find food in this country of plenty. If you look at other studies, they also indicate to us how our productivity is deteriorating every other season. Statistics, national statistics, are also telling us how our soils are becoming degraded day after day. Are you sure, you who is watching me, you have not heard of the fact that our industries are operating at low capacity because they do not have input? Let us use the case of the Soroti Fruit Factory. The Soroti Fruit Factory runs out of fruits to crush, and we import mangoes and oranges from Kenya, from Egypt, from South Africa. This is the case of Uganda. I recall one day the president of Uganda launching a state-of-the-art abattoir where we are supposed to slaughter animals and then export meat that meets the international standards. I have not seen a consignment.
When was that?
Do you remember the AGOA? I last saw the president being harassed with a big barrel of clothes. We don't know what happened to AGOA. I'm singling out this to speak to the issue of agro-industrialization. But we must not increase production at the cost of the generation that is going to come behind us. We are supposed to do it sustainably. So if we have failed to feed ourselves to the tune of 4 people in every 10 people, that sounds a bit low. Let me put it in percentage. At 40%, close to 50% of people in this country cannot have food today, according to U.S. census statistics. What are we going to do when things are becoming harder every another day? For me, I welcome this commitment that we must commit ourselves to this is basic. Because even if it was at household level, who do you deserve the name of a household head when you actually can't feed your
family
people?
is going hungry.
When your family is going hungry. You asked me about strategies.
Yes.
Strategies number 1 is how do we produce? How do we produce? We need to build the consensus on this with a strategy. I know that the declaration recognizes sustainable nature-positive production systems like agroecology. This is one of the strategies that we must implement. Secondly, the issue of standards. Because it doesn't add up to produce, you invest and produce, and what you have produced is rejected, just like our maize has been rejected from whoever wakes up somehow finds a reason to reject what we have produced.
And sometimes they raise, for the case of maize, aflatoxins is always the same issue being raised. Yes.
Chemical residue. Chemical residue. We are still now living on a self-ban. We banned ourselves as Uganda to stop exporting horticulture, vegetables and fruits to Europe. We inflicted a self-ban on ourselves, and of recent EU was reminding us, what have you done? You inflicted a ban on yourselves. What have you done?
Any strategies to work on the issues that you raise?
How do we regulate? I welcome the step the government of Uganda has taken to establish a Food and Agriculture Regulatory Authority at the time when they are rationalizing institutions. That is a recognition, my sister, that this is something, much as we are rationalizing, this is something we can't do without if we are going to redeem the credibility and dignity of our agri-food system. So we need to address the issues of sustainable production, adopting sustainable production approaches and methodologies. We need to look at the issues of standards. We need to look at the issues of the credibility of the inputs that we use. We need to go beyond waiting to God to smile and give us water, that our production remains nature-based. We must identify enterprises that we can produce throughout the year. I have told you the sort of embarrassment that we import fruits in Egypt. Egypt, who sustains the production based on the water that we have exported through the Nile.
Through irrigation.
Through irrigation. So investment in the issues of irrigation, the issue of technology transfer for agro-industrialization. These kwara machines are not going to take us anywhere in the next decade. In every market there is a kwara machine grinding ground nuts. That one is not agro-industrialization. We need high tech. This business of swaying pangas that we are cutting meat in the abattoirs is of very old days. We need to mechanize even our processing and our value addition. You know, mechanisms and infrastructure for storage of our produce. We lose a lot of grains, a lot of produce in post-harvest handling. So these are things that we must work on in the next decade. It will be very sad. I don't know how young I will be looking after this decade, but I love to come back here when I have all reasons to smile and looking younger when we have done something on these basics.
I agree. And when it comes to post-harvest handling, even the president had issues with how people, for instance, store food. When you travel to areas like in eastern Uganda, you're going to find cassava put on the ground alongside the roads. And he even and he even said you should stop doing that. But you see, it's the same thing that happens in some environments with coffee. It's the same thing that happens in other environments with sorghum and so much more.
No, but we need to learn from the coffee farmers, and we need to learn from the coffee subsector. There is self-censorship. There is self-censorship. I'm a coffee farmer.
Yes.
Now, I thought I shouldn't be left behind. So I'm a coffee farmer now, somewhere deep in Kalisizo. So I know what is happening at community level in as far as post-harvest handling of coffee is concerned. It is not being done for other foodstuffs. But also I need to say to His Excellency the President that the next decade you should stop talking about these things.
And what?
And whip the leaders in these communities. In that community where food is being dried on the road, there is an LC1, there is an LC2.
I need to get that right. Did you say whip or equip?
Whip.
Like lash them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, just like Christ entered the temple and it was a mess, and he whipped them. We need whipping this time around because in all of these communities they are leaders.
Yes.
They are security leaders.
And they
Food
let this
is
happen.
a security issue.
Yes.
Food is a security issue because unsafe food kills the people just like the gun kills them. And therefore, Mr. President, in the next decade, don't talk. Don't talk. Don't even waste your time talking. Just pull out your whip, pull out your belt, whip somebody, and you see if you're going to find that food on Tidding Road. Because I'm telling you this, food safety, it is a biological weapon that kills. And therefore, we cannot continue even in the next decade. Oh, I saw it me when I found maize along Kayunga, Bugerere, is it called Kayunga? This road that comes from Jinja, going to Kayunga.
Yes.
That road. I saw maize being dried along the road twice, and I made noise, and the security system in that community woke up, held people. The unfortunate bit is that when they were lined before court, they were charged for misuse of the road. That one I was not very happy. They would have been charged of murder.
Well,
because
we understand that
intentionally contaminating food
is a murder.
It's nothing but murder.
Wow.
So we are murdering the people's health. We are murdering the health of animals. In case of aflatoxins and all these metals, we are murdering the environment. You're even murdering the economy. But also you're murdering our sovereignty as a country. Because look here, my sister. Headlines coming out that things as low as basic, that we cannot produce maize and export it to our neighbors here, Kenya, where they only drew a line to say this is Kenya, this is Uganda. If you cannot produce maize, a grain, then what industrialization are we talking about? Can we continue talking to such people even in this decade? Your Excellency, pull out your belt and whip! Whip them.
Well, Agnes, let's look at food and nutrition security.
Pillar commitment number 3.
Exactly. What measures are outlined to achieve zero hunger in Africa by 2035?
2035. The number one that we have talked about is food safety. Because I told you that people in Africa are not hungry basically because of the absence of food. It is because there are systematic issues that have not been addressed. So number one is the issue of food safety that we have talked about, that I have no kind words
where
over,
the whipping should be applied.
Where the whipping should be applied, where charges should be
levied
against people and institutions that are sleeping. But pillar number 3 is also systematically looking at what are we producing. Because there is producing, but what are we producing?
Yes.
For instance, achieving nutrition security, we are supposed to have diversity. Because ideally, any human being has to consume a minimum of 5 food groups of the 9 in a day. Not eating a soup, that you're taking porridge and you're eating green maize or steamed maize with it and you call it breakfast. That is maize. You're supposed to take at least minimum 5 food groups. To have the 5 food groups, we have to speak to what are we producing. Pillar number 1 was about how. Pillar number 3 is about what are we producing. Number 3, what are you eating? Because we have also experienced cases in Africa where we export value and import low value. Even at community level, communities export all of the good foods into the trading centers or the cities as we are urbanizing, and in the rural areas they eat low value. Somebody sells her eggs and comes back with a bottle of soda. So what are you eating? Some of us overeat. That is why obesity is on the rise and overweight. People eat half a pig for lunch or for evening. People eat all sorts of. So what are we eating? What are we
how much?
What are we giving our children?
Yes.
What are we giving our children? This decade is the decade. Some of these strategies government may not do a lot. What they need to do is national guidance and information. What are you feeding your child on?
So what I
Again,
hear,
the statistics is telling us, the census told us, how many parents in this country are courageous. They give more water to their children. Children below the age of 2, they are eating the same meals as what? As adults. Then those ones who think they have, they push fatty foods,
processed foods,
highly processed, refined foods, sugar sweetened beverages, all sorts of snacks that are on the market.
Crisps.
They are funny snacks. They even put cartoons. Funny things. They are highly sugared. They are highly salted. Some are fatty. I know schools here that prohibit taking food, our Ugandan food, to schools for visitations.
They ask you to buy pizza.
They ask you to buy fast foods. Even some leading, I'm not going to attack brands this morning, but we know some fast foods, high brands that are now stationed towards the directions. I was asking, what is this fast food doing in our village in Chitende? Then I realized that there is a big school around there. In Inaria, somehow, somewhere there. So on the routes to the schools.
You think they're really directly targeting the schools?
Definitely, yes. I have somebody who took off some time, sat at one of them on a visitation day, and actually recorded 2,000 packs going out of that facility, heading where? To schools. So that pillar is, can we look at food not just as a solid thing on a piece of plate, but as something that can quicken your journey to your grave, something that is going to limit your potential. If you look at the levels of malnutrition, 26% of children under 5, according to the census, are stunted. That's at a national average. Actually, but in some region, close to 50.
Close to 50. And that brings me to the next question, Agnes. How does the declaration propose to reduce stunting, wasting, and overweight rates by 25%?
Number 1 is a recognition that this is a problem. For me, that works a lot. And I need to congratulate Africa, recognizing that this is a development program. And the declaration goes into details to highlight some of these things that I have talked about. The issues of nutrition awareness, which is called nutrition education.
Yes.
The whole of 2024, how much of this education, government-driven, did you receive as a viewer? The issues of promoting the production of diverse and nutrient-dense foods, the investments in research to improve our Africa traditional varieties, but also learning from elsewhere in the world. Yes.
Wow, interesting. So Uganda will be hosting the CADAP Summit that will take place on the 9th to the 11th of January 2025 here in Kampala. We are expecting to receive over 55 leaders, or over leaders from 55 African Union member states, and these will include heads of state, ministers. We will also have farmers, development partners, and many more. Now, the theme for this year's summit is building resilient agri-food systems in Africa. And I am speaking to Agnes Chirabo, who is the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance. Now, Agnes has been working with this declaration with the CADAP for quite some time, and she first took us through the first declaration, and then the second, which she called the second declaration, and now the third, which is upcoming. It will be the third or the third declaration or the third generation declaration, and also it will be called the Kampala Declaration. So there is so much enshrined in these declarations, especially the Kampala one that we have been delving deeply into for us to have a clear understanding why this summit is important to Uganda and to the rest of Africa, but what it also means for your food, trade, and livelihoods. So there has been so much to unpack, and as we come to the close of our conversation, Agnes, I would like for you to take us just briefly into inclusivity and livelihoods. And the question here is, what steps are included to close the gender yield gap and empower women, youth, and marginalized groups in agri-food systems?
Wow. I'm happy that you're talking about that. And I'll still reiterate myself that I'm very excited by recognizing that we must commit ourselves on this.
Yes.
The issue of youth, so the issue of women, inclusivity, but also the issues of income. I think for me, it is understanding the gist that is surrounding these particular commitments. Again, back to Uganda. When you look at the census indicated that around 73% of our population is under the age of 30. 73. And to make matters worse, 50% of our population is under the age of 18.
Yes.
That means we have a burden. Those ones exclusively can only be fed. But also the other ones that are between 18 and 30. Many of them have just left school. They are just walking on the streets with brown envelopes. With the documents inside them, I hereby apply. So they are not on the farm, they are not in school, they are not on job.
So they are not adding to the economy.
Yes, they are not adding to the economy. And therefore, that's about the young people. The women, as we speak, most of the backs that are bending at the countryside in Africa, to a tune of around 60%, it is women. And these women are using the local hand hoe. But again, if you look at the contribution of agriculture to GDP, every after another year, it is dropping below 30%. So when we are talking about livelihoods, we are talking about these critical things. How come a sector that is engaging, and I'm very careful, I'm not using the word employing, that is engaging over 60% of the people of Africa is contributing less than 30% of the GDP of Africa, or the GDP in Uganda? That speaks to why we are poor. And that speaks to why we need to invest in agriculture infrastructure to make the agri-food trade work. And the people and the participants get equitable value of their investments in the sector. I'm telling you, one of the things currently I cannot engage myself in is encouraging farmers to keep records. The day they will keep records, we are going to, all of us, get hungry. So, how do we harness indigenous knowledge in Africa? These
question.
are all things. So, how do we fast track the issues of youth involvement and contribution into the agri-food system? How do we open up opportunities? Yesterday we were having a conversation and I learned that the Agricultural Chemical Control Act of Uganda actually provides that nobody should apply chemicals unless it's certified as an applicator, something like that. Do you know that that's a job? Have we thought about mobilizing our younger people and they get trained and certified and then they go into the agri-food system as certified applicators, and then they help the women, the men to do technical application of these chemicals? We would have created jobs for the younger people. We would have saved the farmers and our agri-food system the poor use of chemicals. So the issue of harnessing employment opportunities for the younger people, the issues of harnessing technology to fasten or lessen the burden of women in making the food available.
Well, thank you so much, Agnes. And I believe this conversation, we are going to add more and more onto it, because we will be having conversations regarding the CADAP Summit all week long. And of course, the main event is taking place between the 9th and the 11th of January 2025 here in Kampala. We will be hosting leaders from 55 African Union member states, and among those will be their presidents, there will be their ministers, there will be the farmers from all those countries, including Uganda, and so much more. So you should stick around with us here on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, because we will be bringing you experts and engaging conversations regarding the same. Our first conversation of the day has been one enlightening one that we've had with Agnes Chirabo, who is the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance. Thank you so much for being with us today.
We welcome 2,500 delegates that we are hosting in Kampala. I look forward to all of us viewers to be part of this history.
All right. And we welcome you to be a part of this history here on the national broadcaster, as we will be coming to you live with these events. Now, stick around, because Ruben Pima is coming up next with sports updates. Good Morning Uganda continues.